Hello, everybody, and welcome to this latest in the ValuesJam guest session series. And Isidora, thank you very much for taking some time to be here. And to kick off, please introduce yourself and the great work that you do.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alan. So my name is Isidora. I know it's really complicated for the English speakers, so just call me Izzy. Yeah, so I've just met Alan online and I love the game. I wanted to give it a go. And right now I am a brand and storytelling manager at School of Humanity, which is an interdisciplinary school with a mission to create, to help learners better themselves and better the world.
Okay, so could you tell me just a little bit more about the School of Humanity? Because what a brilliant brand name that is.
Thank you so much. So essentially we're a school with an interdisciplinary curriculum, which means that we don't teach through subjects, we teach through challenges. Each term a learner gets to choose a challenge, whichever fits with their values. So for example, we run challenges such as outcome in humanity, designing space habitats, future of medicine, energy, food and water security, and everything that is kind of relevant to the world of today. And our learners get to look at these challenges from an interdisciplinary lens. So they're driven completely by their curiosity and it's completely personalized. So they get to develop actually solutions to these challenges and at the end of the term present it to the world. So if this sounds like your jam, pun intended, yeah, check it out. And thank you for mentioning it, Alan.
Okay, it's a pleasure. So let's get into our ValuesJam game then. So here's the deck. I'm just going to tip out some of the cards. And how many times would you like me to cut the deck?
Let's do it 3.
Okay. So do you mean 3 piles or 4 piles?
3 piles. Let's do 3 piles.
So I've got 1, 2, and 3. So which number?
Number 2.
Okay.
2
and
players.
I have 9 cards, so a number between 1 and 9.
Number 7.
Number 7.
This is so random. Does that tell you something about justice? Wow, okay.
Yeah, so justice. And the first question is always similar style. And it is this: what does justice mean? And as a follow-up, what does it look, feel, and sound like?
Wow, okay. Should I answer first or do you answer first? How does it go?
You have a go first and then I'll respond and react to what you say.
Okay. To me, personally, justice has a lot of symbolism. Firstly, I don't know, like it's got how's it called? It's really a powerful figure through Greek mythology, for example. We've got like Athena, who is the goddess of war and wisdom, but she also loves justice. There is also, I remember when I was a kid, we drove past this courtroom and there's a big, huge statue, like socialist statue, because I'm from Serbia, I don't know if people know, of this lady, like the one with covered eyes and that holds a sword and like a balance in her scales in her arm, and it always struck with me. And I wasn't aware to why, but I was always drawn to this idea of like balance in the world, and that's what justice is to me. It's balance. And some people call it karma. Whatever you give, it's being returned to you. Some people call it Murphy's Law. I don't know. There is a lot of ways of expressing it, but I feel like the universe balances itself out. And it's interesting because far later I met a friend who was really into the mythical and sort of like all the horoscopical and tarot kind of symbolism, and I discovered that my sign was a Libra, which is literally represented by the scales. So it's funny that you pulled out that card because I've got really a lot of associations with it.
And so let me ask you, Izzy, when is your birthday?
It's 16th of October, same as Oscar Wilde.
So you're exactly 1 week before me.
Really?
Yeah, so we're both Libra, although sometimes my date is Scorpio, sometimes it's Libra. Anyway, that, like you say, a bit strange that
Wow, okay.
you've chosen to pick this card. I mean, the other thing that comes to mind for me with justice is I understand what you're saying about balance, but there's something quite strongly coming through for me about it being authoritative, so powerful, and
Yeah.
also benevolently fair, you know, so it's kind of this powerful thing, whether it's a person or an institution or whatever it is, that
Mm-hmm.
is charged with the responsibility to make important decisions to ensure that things are fair.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that power. That's true. That's true. What you're saying to me also, what I can hear is this sort of like, I wouldn't say mercilessly fair, but fair at any cost. So like there is no bending around the rules for each, particular case. It's just like this universally fair type thing going on. And it is so difficult to achieve in nowadays society because I feel like the pillars of our societies are crumbling at the moment, left and right. So I think our definition of fair is going to evolve as well.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take that second part of the question and just use our imaginations a bit now, tapping into them. What does justice sound like, look like, feel like?
Okay. I love that. Do you have an idea or do you want me to
I
start?
think it feels like acceptance to me, actually. So both parties, whether they like it or not, is another matter. But it's this
Mhm.
feeling that I've been through a process, somebody has made a decision, and I get why that decision has been made. Um, what does it look like? I think a judge. That's what comes into my mind. That picture. Um, and what does it sound like? I think it sounds like, mhm, like that. That's that kind of the understand slash accept. That. What about you?
Wow. Okay. So I think, and it always like these sort of things come from our personal feelings, right? Like the personal associations that the brain just saw somewhere and thought, right, this is what is being, this is what is associated to this. So it's going to be a bit different. So I mentioned the statue, right?
Yeah.
Um, this is literally how I imagine it to be, like this huge big white marble lady that cannot be tripled or broken or bended. It's like very rigid and cold, stone cold, um, but beautiful. Yeah, it's not. I feel like to me, it's just something that you observe like from underneath. That's this sort of deity. Um, and I can see it also exist in this sort of warp of different spectrums of light. So it's like kind of a light with all the rainbow colors around it because it's like the acceptance of everything, as you mentioned, right? But also to me, it does feel honest. Like I feel like being honest with yourself is just like you can only do injustice if I feel like if your um, thoughts are warped and if your reasoning is warped, then you can be unjust. Um, and what does it sound like? Um, oh, there was this. So I got into classical music for work because it puts me in a flow zone. And I remember that there is and maybe somebody would know, like it goes like do, 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 do. Like I don't know how to explain it, but there is a lot of like deep melody,
Yeah.
with a lot of cellos and a lot of trumpets and drums, and that's kind of how it sounds like this sort of D-Day. That's how justice sound like to me. Is that too dramatic?
No, I think that's great, and it's there's something that you said a little bit earlier about how our society is changing and our concept of fairness will change. I can't remember whether you said it will change or needs to change, and that's making me curious and to think about justice, because it feels like perhaps justice is the end, but the question is the means to that end fit for purpose anymore? Because it feels to me like the justice system is broken in so many ways.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in your further thoughts on this development of what fairness means.
I don't think I've actually said that right. Like what I think is, for me, justice is a universal. Like there is things that are good and things that are bad, but I don't think we as humans grasp it to the far extent that it is. And that's why I think our justice system, I don't think a justice system equals justice.
Okay.
I think it attempted to be whilst designing it, and then whilst practicing it and implementing it, it just gets like kind of crumbled. Like do you know what I mean? Like it worked for some time, and now it's crumbling down, and we can all see the ugly, and it is in contrast to the white big marble lady who cannot be crumbled. This one is made out of cheap material, and it's not it. I don't know, I'm being too colorful with this, but I know you're following me.
You're not being too colorful at all, but I'm making a connection actually between justice and education in the sense that you've just described, because education originally, there was fantastic intention behind what education should mean for the people going through the education inverted commas system, just as justice was a very admirable, desirable outcome, and the justice system was put in place. But in both situations, they're falling short. Well, in this, it's a personal perspective, so other people might not agree, but it feels to me that there is a parallel here, because neither system is actually achieving what it set out to do originally, and both seem to have got consumed with the process rather than having kept the end as the pure objective.
Yeah, form over function, which shouldn't be the case. And that's exactly right. We as humans, we evolved in the past 100 years. I mean, past million years, obviously, but in the past 100 years, immensely. Now, you don't need to remember things by heart in order to be an expert. You're carrying your expert box in your pocket for everyone. So, in order to be successful in this world, our skills are evolving. However, the and same as justice system, the education system, I'm no expert. This is just for my colleagues that keep educating us on this. But our educational system was designed to accommodate to people to like 150 years ago during the Industrial Revolution. But now we see a new revolution, which is the technological revolution, the AI revolution, and the world isn't following. What we want to do is we want to equip them with skills to flourish in life and to be successful. And what we now see is that the skills that are learning in schools are highly inapplicable in real life. So they need to relearn the skills after they enter the workforce or start their company or whatever pursuit of happiness that they want to achieve. So yes, exactly. Like we see the school crumble. We see kids being unhappy in schools, being unappreciated. We see that high achievers in schools right now are being bullied, and they're being pushed aside instead of being put on the pedestal for their effort and try. So obviously the values are upside down, the justice isn't there. So yeah, I think it's the entire structure of society is bound to change.
Yeah. And you've reminded this conversation has reminded me of something that happens in Zulu tribes, and it relates to justice. So, and again, this is just what I've read, so I don't have any personal experience of it, but apparently, when somebody does something wrong, the elders, sorry, the elders form a circle around them, and then they share stories about the good things that this person has done that has committed wrong. And that's it. So you compare that with say, the justice system in this country, and I'm not sure how different it might be in Serbia, but the justice system in this country certainly seems to be more focused on punishment more than anything else. So it's not really about justice anymore. It's about a system to hand out punishment that can be justified. And that
Yeah.
feels like it falls short of what justice should be about.
Yeah, exactly. It's this was so interesting, right? Because so my partner, he's from Scotland, and he's here currently with me in Serbia, so I technically imported him. And for him to get a visa, we both needed to prove that we're unmarried. And so I went to this, service municipality type of thing, and I requested a confirmation that I'm not married. And I went home, and my dad said, "So why you prove it? Like, where is the innocent until proven otherwise? You should be proving that you're married. Otherwise, you're unmarried." And it is a thing that we kind of accepted, but you need to prove your innocence right now. It's not innocent until proven otherwise. It's like, I'll punish you until you prove you're innocent. Type of thing, which I think, and as you said, like, there is no reinforcement, there is just punishment in the justice system. So that just reminded me of that.
It's like, it does seem that people kind of, it's this absence of common sense, isn't it? It's kind of like you just get caught up with managing the process, and it's like, doesn't matter whether it makes sense or not. Like that is a brilliant example of something that really just does not make sense, and yet it's there and it happens. You have to abide by it.
You have to do it.
So let me choose another question
from
the back of the card. So when have you experienced justice?
Oh, okay. Oh, that's a difficult one, isn't it? Do you have an example?
I'm just trying to think. I'm not sure if this is kind of relevant, but actually it's probably the opposite of what I've asked. But let me share the story with you anyway. So I was driving to see a friend, and we were on the motorway, and there was a traffic jam. So virtually standstill. So I thought what I should do is message my friend to let him know that we were going to be delayed. So I did this, and then a blue flashing light came on behind us, and I was asked by the police car to move over to the side. So the police lady approached the car and said, "Do you know why you've been stopped?" So I said, "I guess it's because I was using my phone," because I don't know if you know, but it's illegal to use your phone, when you're driving.
Yeah.
So she said, "Yeah, that's right. You're not allowed to use your phone when you're driving. Can I have your driving license?" So gave that. She went back to the vehicle with her colleague. Then she came back again, and she said, "Don't do that again. It's dangerous. On this occasion, we've chosen to take no further action."
Amazing.
I was relieved. I gave her a thumbs up and said, "Thank you so much." And I was thankful. And I have never, I've had a few speeding fines, but nothing, very much. And I'm careful when I'm driving. And I remember feeling, that's fair, overall, that seems fair and just. But then as I was driving off, I was thinking, I wonder if I'd been a 22-year-old person of color, whether the same decision would have been made. And so then I found myself totally conflicted because, from the experience that I'd had, I was thinking, yeah, that's fair. But then I was thinking, well, it's not fair if I was being treated in a different way than other people. So that's my example or not example of when I experienced justice. Does that do anything for you?
It makes sense because you, in that situation, you didn't invite the rule. You had all the right to come around and be like, listen, here's your fine, or you're taking your license, or whatever the punishment is. But I know it's really strict in the UK because you guys with the driving, your laws are much stricter than in Serbia. However, she did take a reasonable approach of understanding, hey, he's standing, he couldn't have caused any harm to anyone, and kind of, took this sort of reasonable approach instead of blindly following the rules. And this is exactly what we spoke about, justice system versus justice. She had all the right to punish you. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, but see, I'm thinking whether justice oftentimes equal mercy or any sort of revenge or any sort of punishment. And I think in oftentimes it does mean mercy if your mistake was, if you didn't think that you were in the wrong, right? Or punishment or revenge if you were in the wrong and kind of like doing the things in that sort of way. So it just reminds me of this karma thing that happened a couple of days ago. So my younger brother was visiting, and I love him to bits, honestly. Like he's the best person ever. He's got a heart of gold, but he's my brother, right? And we bicker all the time. And I'm not the way he wants me to be. He's not the way I want him to be, and that's fine. We're close as I will ever be. I'd give my life for him, but he's simply the worst. And so he's here and like he's visiting me, and he's like out all the time, kind of being, relaxed and focused. I'm the one cleaning after him and kind of messing with him about it. And so we order sushi and we order tons of sushi. We get completely destroyed. And he spills soy sauce on the carpet. And then I tell him, okay, you need to clean this up. Here's the thing. And I give him the thing to clean it up. And as I was carrying away, so I had this like rack, like clothes rack, and I was carrying it outside so it doesn't start smelling like soy and fish and all this kind of stuff. I told him, and now as a punishment, you need to clean the entire kitchen as well. And as I was saying that, so we have this like tall, what's it called? Like a tall, like a, what's it called? Like a tall pot, like a
Bars,
what's it
like
called? Yeah, but it's not like a plastic pot. It's more like a clay pot, really thick
okay.
one. That is like this tall. So I'm
Yeah.
sitting right now, and as I said that, I smacked my leg so hard that I've got a bruise that big right now on my leg, and I was like, you know what? I deserved it. I deserved it. I tried to get out, a kitchen service. I should have just said, would you clean my kitchen as well, please? But no, I said, as a punishment, now you need to clean the kitchen. And I think the universe kind of gave me my justice.
And it's going back to your observation about the police lady and the decision that she took. I kind of agree with you and I don't agree with you, because in the individual situation, the exercise of her judgment seems to be the kind of right thing to do. And, obviously, because I was personally involved, I would say that. But then the complication that causes is when things like that happen again and again and again, and you've got people everywhere exercising their personal judgment and being trusted to do that and being fallible and therefore sometimes getting it wrong. And so it feels like the system is designed to serve itself rather than the end that it's there to achieve, in that if you can justify every decision based on consistency and all of that sort of stuff, then you say the system works. But actually, that's at the cost of decisions not being made appropriately in
Exactly.
individual circumstances.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So if a guy's wife is in labor and he's speeding, would you say he's committing a crime?
Yeah.
In my eyes, he's not. It is a situation that requires breaking the law. And I think justice is universal, as in it belongs to everyone, but laws aren't just. They're just here to make the system work, but are they true reflection of justice? I don't think so. It can cover the sort of nuances that we spoke about.
So is it something to do about the balance between spirit and technicality?
That's a good question. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. The question is, are we ever going to be achieving this in this sort of life and universe?
Yeah.
Because it's
Because
so nuanced.
just going back to the earlier example in the Zulu village, think about all of the cost involved in terms of time and money in our existing system, and for what? It's like, so if somebody does something wrong, then surely it's more important to understand the impact of what's being done and why it's wrong, and to seek to do stuff that corrects that, not just for this individual, but more generally across society, so that it doesn't happen, rather than constantly just investing in this system that's rumbling along, punishing people, and not necessarily addressing the root cause of all these things that are happening that are wrong.
The question is, do we want to know the root cause? Do we want to go back to the drawing boards? I mean, you and I might.
That's a great question. So is something behind that suggests that there isn't any interest in doing that? Because for me, I guess naturally I would say, well, why wouldn't you want to know what the root cause is? That's what everybody should be looking to solve the root cause so that the stuff doesn't keep happening.
Yeah, I think there are individuals out there. I don't want to be completely unjust and say, all the governments are bad and our system's broken. No, I think there are individuals out there, and I personally know some that work within the court system and the law enforcement system that are really dedicated to what they're doing. They really live for the mission. They want it to be better because they understand that they personally are going to benefit from it, and we as a society are going to benefit from it. However, on a major scale, is that a mission? I don't know. I can't tell you that.
And there's also
right now, I just wanted to say, like, see now the tragedy, for example, that happened in Serbia. The president's come up with 10 proposals to how it can be improved. However, there's no sort of, out of those 10 things, which is, weapon control, stricter licensing, stricter enforcing, reducing the age of responsibility from 14 to 12, and all this kind of stuff. I don't see one point that says, let's pay attention to children's well-being.
Yeah, exactly.
From the early age.
Yeah.
Right? So as you said, there is no treatment for the root cause here. Did he think about it? Maybe. Is there a way to do this? Maybe. I don't know if it's feasible even. However, I wish he was, because I feel like if this kid went to a school where his where his entire being as a human being, instead of his performance in school, was paid attention to from an early age, maybe he would have done it. I'm not a psychologist, but I would like to think that he wouldn't.
This is interesting because this conversation is almost an echo of another values jam I had recently, which was around the value of safety. And what we talked about there was sadly another school shooting situation, but we used the context of America, where it's more frequent. And we were talking about how the response there is shooting drills, right? So I shared with the guy that I was values jamming with that I had heard a story about an 8-year-old girl coming home from school, her dad saying to her, how was school today? And she said, it was fine. We had a shooting drill. And that's normal, right, for her. So my question
Horrible.
was, yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, I don't want my child to ever have to go through a shooting drill.
Yeah, So
ever in life.
this was what we ended up talking about, how the response to try and achieve a feeling of safety often puts in place things that mean that safety will never be achieved, because you're not looking at the root cause again. It's just this, because there was one proposal from, I can't remember whether it was an individual or an association or whatever it was, but this suggestion was, this is what we can do. Let's arm the teachers.
Let's have a shootout.
Yeah.
Counter-strike all the way, baby. No, no. No, like I don't know who does this, but I know that, like, it's not like just 3 people making a decision on this. If it was 3 people, and you know this, you probably organize a sort of gathering of 3+ people. If you have more than 3 people involved, the gathering has 90% chance of failing. So because it's just like different opinions, different people with different agenda just showing up and wanting different things. And I think this is what's happening in society. However, like it's just, when you said it's America, so it happens more often, it's worse. Like our nation, because you're trying to say we're not used to violence, we're Norway, so this is a shock to us. No, it is just a shock because it hasn't been covered in the media so far. But it's equally as tragedy as every other tragedy that happened in the US so far. And there was like 200 something of them. Yeah. All those lives are lost because of the failing system. And instead of, as you said, instead of treating the root cause, and I'm completely going to be merciless, like completely just. And I don't say the justice should be merciless, should be rude or annoying, or how would I put it? Like justice shouldn't be a douchebag. It's just a direct, straight to the face. You're doing this wrong. I accept you as you is, but you need to change this. And yeah, when it comes to that, I don't think they're treating the root cause that they should. And that, what you just said about arming the teachers, it's like, having malaria, mosquitoes, and just teaching everyone karate so they can find those mosquitoes. Like, it's futile. It's not going to help. You're still going to get affected. The shootings are still going to happen.
Yeah. Let's move the conversation on. And in the value,
sorry, I just went on a whim there.
That's okay. So in the ValuesJam card game, there is an opportunity to create your own question. So I'm going to invite you to do this. So ask your own question about justice, beginning with who, what, where, when, why, or how.
Ooh, this side. Oh God, my creativity muse is gone. She's asleep. Maybe let's try this. Where, in your opinion, is the justice system as close to justice in the world?
Wow, great question.
I think that would require knowledge of justice system, right?
Yeah, well, I've got two answers, I think. One is a fictitious, benevolent dictatorship, where the person in charge is pure and good, and then they rule with an absolute iron fist. So, and that maybe that's impossible to achieve, but that's one answer. And the other one is a well-functioning family. And the reason for saying this is that in a well-functioning family, everybody goes along with what the family does. It's with good intent. And I say, well-functioning deliberately, because, we're not here talking about dysfunctional families. And there is mutual appreciation and respect. There's acceptance when things might have to go forward that you don't particularly want, but you accept it because that's the family way. So those are two, very different ends of the spectrum examples of where I think justice is in place, whether it be real or imaginary.
I love that. I love that you mentioned dictatorship, because we spoke about this in the school actually, and I just like making jokes with everyone and just like picking on people sometimes, but always in good spirit. And so we were organizing some trips and stuff, and we received an agenda, and then I said, obviously the dictatorship worked because we never got to vote on what we want to do. We were just given it, and we were really happy with it. But it just reminds me of it because we were so happy to be relieved of our responsibility to plan, to direct, to choose what we need to do. We were just, obviously we had a type form that we had to fill out of what we like to do and the activities we enjoy. So it's not a complete dictatorship. However, there was a person in charge who organized everything, and we just received the itinerary, and that's it. So to an extent, I don't know, it might work, obviously. And in the person example, like a lot of dictatorships right now in the world are thriving. A lot of them are crumbling, but I guess it depends on a top person. As you said, there is very just, but rules with an iron fist. I love that. What you said is like there is no wiggle room for corruption and for any sort of personal agendas and all this kind of stuff, which I love. And I love how my observation was your spectrum was either a complete dictatorship or an ultimate democracy. Like there's nothing in between.
Well, I'm not so sure that. So the family, I think, I don't think of that as an ultimate democracy, because what the parents say goes, in my experience anyway. It's not, the kids don't have an equal vote. The parents are making decisions with everybody's best interest at heart. So it strikes me as something different to a democracy. When you asked the question, did you have something in mind yourself?
No, I actually didn't. It's just one of those things that I'm currently just thinking about. It's because we in the world we've tried the ultimate democracy, it didn't work. We tried capitalism, it didn't work. We tried totalitarianism, it didn't work. Like what works? And this is like a thing that I'm reading this really cool book called A Fake History. You need to check it out. Fake history. So it's just like myths about the world and like big people, like big how to say big ideas or big what word am I looking for? Like big people in the world, like the legends essentially. Yeah. And by the way, Churchill's mentioned in the book, so it's quite interesting. And yeah, I'm just thinking, like what works. That's kind of the thing that it's been on my mind lately. And I don't know if I can agree or disagree with you because I don't have the answer. I do sway towards the dictatorship as well.
I think what it can, for me, whether it's democracy or whether it's a dictatorship, I think ultimately it comes down to good intention. Because if you don't have good intention in either of those systems, it's just not going to work. And I think that's one of certainly in the UK, and you sound as though you're quite familiar with what's going on in the UK. There is so little trust in the people that are responsible for making important decisions, because there have been so many examples where it's quite clear that there is no good intention. There's either self-serving or trying to have one set of rules for them when everybody else is expected to do other stuff. And so once it gets to that sort of situation and you've lost that good intention, then I think whether it's, with a dictatorship, you would end up with a coup or a revolution. With a democracy, you would end up with people just not feeling that it's working. And that's the dangerous time where perhaps extreme parties then start to get attention and attraction because people feel that that's the only way to get away from this kind of, well, it's all polarized. You've always got 50-50. So
Yeah, and
become,
anger fueled people do tend to sway towards
yeah,
extremes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
but let me the one thing that I want to close with. So
yeah,
from judging from this, we said like a lot of self-serving, I mentioned a lot of personal agendas. Do you think that actual true justice is selfless?
I think that wasn't a very open question, but I think I think it has to be, because otherwise, by definition, there's personal interest, which in order to be able for justice to take place, I think impartiality has to be there. So I'm thinking I'm a football fan and sad today because Manchester United lost yesterday. But the referee in a sports game is hopefully totally impartial and gives justice evenly, irrespective of what colours the team is wearing or what name is on their shirt. And I think that is a prerequisite of justice. So I would say yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then the referees shouldn't be familiar with any football team, have no preference, and just show up at the court blindly in the ideal world then.
In the ideal world, yeah. But
Yeah.
and you have situations, I think, where you've got referees that were a boyhood fan of a team, and generally, I think it's avoided that they referee a match involving any team that they have a connection with, which it makes sense. Now,
Okay, I didn't know that.
you mentioned closing up, which we need to do in terms of time right now, but there is a final question for us, and it's this. What are you encouraged to do differently about justice as a result of our conversation?
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's it. That's interesting. I think sometimes I can be, and this sounds like such a humble brag, but sometimes I tend to be a little bit too understanding. And um I'm very like, I think it comes from self-understanding, right? So everything that I do, I kind of tend to analyze and then say, right, this came from my own um personal judgment, and I understand myself, therefore I'll explain why I did this. But sometimes we need to accept that some things are just ultimately wrong, right? Um, like in the case of the shooting, right? I sat down and I said, the kids, the parents were probably bad, he was probably molested, who knows what happened. And I started finding excuses for it. But that sort of excuse is hurtful to the overall justice. And sometimes I think what we need to do is we need to be honest with ourselves, and instead of finding excuses, look at ourselves and say, whatever you did is wrong. And you need to look it in the face, you need to accept it, you need to accept the change and move on, and not find excuses for what you did. So um, that's a lesson, I think. Apart from many others like selflessness and and just understanding the form of reflection and understanding the system versus the universal one as well. So many insights, I think, just came up, but that was the main kind of thinking on my end.
Okay.
What about you?
For me, I think it's a bit of yin and yang, because I agree with what you've just said, but not in isolation, because I think there's the risk that we've already talked about, that if you do that, then you become focused on the punishment, full stop. So for me, in this situation, I think, yes, I agree, it is wrong what happened and deal with it. But then make sure you ask the question, why did it happen? And how can we prevent anything like this happening again? But I'm trying to think about how I can do something differently in my situation that relates to that. So I think it's about dealing with the event as it happens and being quite hardline, but then following that up with, let's make sure we investigate the why and prevent it happening again, because that's our real focus. So
I love it.
thank you for this Values Jam today. I'm going to be thinking about this for the rest of the day, I think. But anyway, Izzy, thank you so much for your time, and you are now a Values Jammer.
Yay! Thank you so much, Alan. I love this kind of conversation, and I'm so grateful that I could be the part of this and that our paths crossed, over a Value Jam.
Okay, take care.
Take care.